Of you, it is painful and disheartening to see how much divisiveness is being fomented by those who wish to tear us apart. We have people in positions of power who are not thinking about the well-being of the people and our planet. Where is that conversation about the needs of our people? Where is the conversation about peace? Every time we launch these interventionist regime change wars, it is not only our veterans who pay the price for that. Every single one of us pays the price. We have spent trillions of your taxpayer dollars to pay for these wars, taking those dollars away from our communities and our people who need them right here at home. We are the ones who have the power to make change. It takes every single one of our hands, our hearts, and our voices, motivated by this love and aloha, to take on those forces and those obstacles that can seem too great to overcome. There is no force more powerful than love. This is how we come together as Americans. This is why we fight for the future that we hope will be so much brighter for those that we care about, for the country that we love.
I'm going to ask you what we always ask everybody who's running here. Why? Why are you doing it?
You have that crazed look in your face. You know, after 9/11, like so many Americans, I wanted to do something to serve and protect our people and our country. So I enlisted in the Army National Guard, volunteered to deploy to Iraq, and in 2012, along with now Senator Tammy Duckworth, became one of the first female combat veterans ever elected to Congress. It is those values of service before self that every soldier, every service member represents that I want to bring to the White House, to reinstill those values of honor, integrity, and respect to the presidency.
Very brave of you to join up like that. That's great. Thank you.
It's my honor to serve.
Sure.
Thanks.
How did your experience fighting in Iraq shape your outlook of the United States' role in foreign policy? Because in my research, I found that you have a strict non-interventionist approach, and you are against the United States entering countries and being there for this sort of regime change.
No, as a soldier, I deployed with our brigade combat team from Hawaii. I volunteered to deploy with them to Iraq in 2005, which was the height of the conflict there. I served in a medical unit where every single day I was confronted with, in a heart-wrenching way, the high human cost of war. Very first thing I did every single morning was go down a list of names of every single American casualty, every single service member who'd been injured the day before. And I had to see if any of our brigade soldiers were on that list, make sure they got the care that they needed, or to evacuate them as quickly as possible. But as I went through this list every single day, I was struck with the names and the faces of my brothers and sisters who were paying the price for this war. I was struck with their families, their loved ones at home, who were so stressed and so anxious for the well-being of their loved ones. It is those experiences of understanding and knowing firsthand the cost of war, both on our service members, on our veterans, as well as the cost on the people in the countries where we intervene, as well as the trillions of dollars, our taxpayer dollars that are spent on waging these wars, dollars that are sorely needed to address the very real urgent needs of our families, our communities, our neighbors right here at home.
Now, this guy's the former CEO, or he is the CEO. He's the outgoing Starbucks chairman for Starbucks, Howard Schultz. And he's saying going to run for president, and he's going to do it as a Democrat. And what this guy is going to, well, he said some crazy stuff. Here it is. Here's what he's concerned about Democrats. Want to know what he's concerned about?
So many voices within the Democratic Party are going so far to the left, and I ask myself, how are we going to pay for all these things?
So that's what he asked himself. How is he going to pay for all these things? So let me just give you the rundown. Things we cannot afford. Healthcare, infrastructure, public transport, education, renewable energy, clean environment, feeding the poor, and public elections. Can't afford it. They can afford it in every other country that has the wealth that we have, or less wealth than we have. They can all afford it. But a guy who was a CEO of Starbucks, who, by the way, got people to pay $5 for a 50-cent cup of coffee on the regular, somehow he can convince people to have breakfast as a coffee drink. I mean, have dessert for breakfast as a coffee drink, but somehow we can't have health care. Here's the things we can't afford. The things we can't afford: Iraq and Afghanistan wars, $4.6 trillion. Wall Street bailout, $12.8 trillion. Big oil subsidies, and an F-35 program, which is $1.5 trillion that nobody wants. That's from American reformers. You want to see what we can afford? Here's what we can afford. 600, that, by the way, that's more now. So they just all got together, decided that wasn't enough money we were spending, more than the next 8 countries combined. That wasn't enough. We're now spending more. We're now spending close to $700 billion a year on war. That's 40% more than we were spending at the height of the Iraq war. We're now spending 40% more. Nobody ever said, how are we going to afford that? I'm worried about my friends on the left and the right. How are we going to pay for all that war? No one ever asked that question. They just spend an extra $80 billion per year they gave to Trump, who's supposed to be a maniac that we're not supposed to let near the nuke button, except we're going to give him $80 billion more for bombs, and then we're going to attack him from the right when he doesn't bomb enough. So here is the Jeff Bezos of Asia, Jack Ma. So he runs Alibaba, which is the Amazon of Asia. And they asked him, hey, what the hell's, why is America so effed up? They're the richest country in the world, and half their country's poor. And he says this. Here's what he said.
Past 30 years, the American had 13 wars, spending $14.2 trillion. The money going there. What if they spend a part of that money on building up the infrastructure, helping the white collars and the blue collars? No matter how strategy good it is, you're supposed to spend money on your own people.
Can I vote for him instead of Howard Schultz?
Should we not get involved when we see atrocities abroad?
We have to understand, looking at Iraq, Libya, and Syria, for example, that there are brutal dictators in the world. And unfortunately, there are people who are suffering as a result of that. But in so many examples throughout history, when the United States takes action and intervenes and launches these regime change wars to topple these dictators, the suffering of the people in these countries increases. Their lives are made worse off than they were before. There is far more death and destruction. Libya is a perfect example.
So, I mean, that is the land of unconfirmed.
Yes, we came, we saw, he died.
Did it have anything to do with your visit?
No, I'm sure it did.
Muammar Gaddafi was toppled. Now, today, we have more terrorist groups in Libya than ever before. We have Libyan people, women and children, being sold in open markets as slaves.
Migrants crossing the Mediterranean have brought with them stories of horror. A CNN team went to Libya to witness the true inhumanity for themselves. They got access to a migrant slave auction where men were sold like commodities. Have a look at the story.
A man addressing an unseen crowd. Big strong boys for farm work, he says. 400. 700. 700. 800. The numbers roll in. These men are sold for 1,200 Libyan pounds, $400 apiece. You are watching an auction of human beings.
So while these wars
Which we didn't have before when he was there?
Which didn't exist before.
No?
And so while
Sorry,
let's just finish this one point, because we feel for the suffering of people in these countries, and we want to be able to help them. And so many of these wars are begun and waged from a place of humanitarianism.
Yeah.
But the reality is, and it's a harsh reality, that there is more suffering and more loss of life and more destruction as a result of these wars, which does not serve the people in these countries, nor does it serve our interests and our security.
The White House should be a beacon of aloha, respect, love, and compassion for every American.
There are a lot of challenges that are facing the American people that I'm concerned about and that I want to help solve.